to introduce you to Yuri Borgianni. He's assistant professor at the Free University of Bozen in Italy, and he's going to talk today to us about how do users perceive the product sustainability performance. I know he's been doing lots of research on that, so be ready for lots of interesting information to come. Over to you, Yuri. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniela. So I will operate the sharing of the screen. So I hope that the first slide is visible, and then if you give me the okay, I will start.
It's working perfectly, Yuri.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Daniela, for introducing me. I will spend a few more words about me, and thank you especially for introducing the Design Society and the Sustainable Design Special Interest Group that Daniela is currently chairing. I'm very happy to present some research results and some thoughts about how do users perceive the product sustainability performance. But let's go first step by step. Who I am. I'm a mechanical engineer, graduated in 2005, and then a PhD in industrial engineering in 2014, and from starting from 2015, I'm here in Bolzano at the Free University of Bozen, Bolzano, where I work as an assistant professor. During this time, I've done a lot of more or less interesting things, including lecturing, coordinating programs, being members of PhD committees, writing, and doing research in various fields that you will see have some relationships with what I'm talking about today. So design methods, creativity, eco-design, additive manufacturing, value perception, and human behavior in design. But first of all, today I'm proud to be here with you as a member of the steering committee of the Design Society Special Interest Group of Sustainable Design. So if the introduction to myself is not sufficient, you can discover more about me and especially my work activity, research activity through these links. But really, it is not the right place for doing it. So I would like to start talking about something a little bit more personal and maybe even more interesting to you. So what happened last August the 4th? I have the picture on the memory of my phone, so I can tell you for sure that what I'm showing you now came out, took place on the 4th of August 2020. So I discovered in that occasion, because I found it at honestly at the home of my parents-in-law, a roll of paper without any hole in the middle. Great discovery. I didn't know if it was common to have these rolls with the hole in the middle, or if it was just a technological problems to have them. In any case, what struck me, and then you will see also why, is having this product that in my mind really is compliant with many of the eco-design principles and strategies we are studying and we are doing research on. And by the way, it follows a trend. So more and more diffusers are paper rolls with the hole in the middle, but without the cardboard cylinder. So of course, if compared to the predecessors, and I would say to the baseline products, they reduce the waste, so the cardboard, and they are lighter, and they are used actually in the same way. But then, if we turn our view from the picture in the middle and a paper roll without any hole in the middle, we see that in the same volume of space we have much more material. So therefore, overall, this solution is more space saving, it enables more efficient transportation, it decreases packaging if we consider the unit of quantity of the functional product, and for this reason it is also likely cheaper. Great new performances, very interesting to see that also in simple consumer products, everyday products, such achievements can be pursued. So, but is everything fine with these new kind of roles? Are we really facing a win-win situation? From the point of view of eco-design and sustainable design strategies, I think actually. But let's try to have a larger picture. Will it stand after some paper has been used, and so will it lead to some discomfort or inconvenience for the users? I don't know, because I left the home of my parents-in-law a few days afterwards. Will the user tend to use more and more paper as more material is available? And what will happen to the paper roll stand that the user had used beforehand? Will it be littered? That would be said also for the stand itself, but in each case it would provoke a problem from somehow an environmental point of view. So it means that changing things, improving products, and increasing environmental performance could give rise also to different problems, to other issues. And one, after my discussion, would tend to say, but do you mean that designing greener products, we have also to prevent that those have effects on user and consumers? I'm not saying that. I'm not just saying that what is improved from an environmental point of view is just what is hidden, what the user actually doesn't perceive. Of course, also in this case we would have some kind of advantages, but since in general when we make changes, there is a propagation of effects that are brought by our changes, our modifications, we should take into account the larger picture and not just the observation of the unit itself of the product we are developing. So it means that if we see eco-design at a larger scale, because of course our objective is to not only show capability as eco-designers to create products that are potentially better for the environment, we have also to be committed to making this product largely acceptable and used in the best way possible. So while the literature so far has much focused on improving, enhancing the potential environmental friendliness of products, an important step in order to reach the highest goal is also the need to make people aware of green advantages, which have to be perceived as valuable. So therefore, if the products that we develop and that are potentially more eco-friendly remain on a shelf of a supermarket, their contribution to sustainable development is really limited. Of course, it is a sort of paradox. And therefore, since we assume that at least in a large share of population, environmental problems are well perceived, it would be good if people are also able to distinguish the green advantages so that these are valuable and that they deliver value, and this of course results also in the choice of greener products. Of course, then we have also to prevent user from using more green products in a way that is not sustainable. So I envision a three-step process that we should have in mind, but I have not the key to all these questions, but I would like to focus on the second step, that maybe it is something that has been not particularly addressed and completely addressed so far, which was of course the trigger for some of our studies, so studies in which I have participated. So the very research question I'm proposing, or I have proposed in the past, is to try to answer this question. So somehow I am reformulating the questions that we should ask, and that differs a little bit with respect to the title of the webinar. So what happens when people are faced with more or less sustainable products? Of course, we would like to understand which difference makes the change from a product that is less sustainable to a product that is potentially more sustainable. Does it capture people attention, and why? Does it have do greener products deliver emotional values? Do they trigger emotion? Do they trigger actually a sense of good? Or there is also the chance that they will live, and there is the chance that they can leave people indifferent. I reacted very much to discovering these new products, but of course this doesn't mean that all the people behave the same. So in order to answer this question, we tried to include in the study different variables, different parameters, and different viewpoints. First of all, the people, which could be maybe categorized according to the level of sensibility and interest in environmental issues. So we would like to understand how much people are aware of environmental problems and the importance they attribute to this issue. We want to compare in answering these questions products that are more or less sustainable, because as we said, we would like to capture some differences, and this will be done by answers that are given by people, so conscious answers, evaluations, conscious evaluations, but also to capture some data that is less conscious, so people's behavior that is somehow unintended. And I will briefly show that there are some instruments that enable capturing people's attentions and what it is focused on, for example, on an object. This of course happens both for more or less sustainable products, and also the level of arousal and excitement that these products might engender. So in order to be crystal clear about which were the conditions for performing this study, this was the setting. Of course, we have the person, for which we have tried to assess the level of sensitivity towards environmental issues. We have the products, in some cases more sustainable products, in some cases less sustainable products were displayed on a computer screen. And we had the possibility, so we had the questionnaire in order to evaluate products according to a number of indicators, And then the experimental setting was equipped with instrument for capturing attention, an eye tracker actually, and for capturing possible events of arousal. And this is made through a galvanic skin response meter. In this environmental setting, in order to go a little bit more in details, in order to capture the sensitivity of people towards environmental issues, all the participants, 43 actually, had pre-compiled a questionnaire. We told people that it was just for learning how to use scales, but actually there were many answers that were deemed relevant to us. And for example, the approach of these people towards the reuse of product, public transports, and other indicators that you see in the slide. But of course, since we never mentioned during the experiments words like green, sustainability, environment, climate change, and so on, because we didn't want, we tried to capture the sincere behavior and evaluation of people without being affected by the scope of the experiment. All these questions were mixed among a large number of additional questions that look like extremely misleading. Few participants at the end of the experiment realized somehow that they were faced with more or less sustainable products. And that is already an indication of the capability of distinguishing green aspects. But I will come to that later. As far as the products are concerned, all the participants in two different stages and in a random manner were exposed to 20 pairs of sustainable and more sustainable products and less sustainable but maybe more established alternatives. So different kinds, many of them are consumer products, but in any case, these are all kind of products that we leverage, that they are of everyday use, and they surely do not require a specialist for them to being known. As far as the question is concerned, for each product, the evaluators indicated their level of knowledge of that category of products, personal interest, if they would prefer the object with respect to an alternative one, if a good quality was perceived, if any advantages were present, if disadvantages were absent, if they would think to be willing to pay for that product, so to pay more for that product instead of an alternative, to estimate the price, and if they could find that object as somehow novel and creative. As far as change is concerned, when we switch from one kind of product to another, novelty and creativity could be clearly involved. From the point of view of the, let's say, biometric measures to capture attention and arousal, basically all these measures were in terms of number and the frequency of eye blinks that might indicate the absence of attention, so attention breaks, fixations to determine how many times and for how long people were looking for important information in the pictures that were shown. This is in order to see also how difficult they look for information relevant for answering the questionnaire took place. Saccades, so periods without focusing on specific points, that mean that people do not find in the picture in specific areas interesting information, and then together with it, if the pupil, if dilation or constriction of the pupil's eyes took place, which of course mean moments in which people are more or less focused, specific strategy of observations, levels of involvement, and the peak of conductance measured by the GSR that of course feature the arousal and therefore the involvement, and to a certain respect also the level of emotions that are engendered during these experiences. So now that the methodological setting, and maybe you can also understand which factors could more or less affect the results, you can of course make up your mind. I'm going to present the main results. Let's start. The more sustainable products are attributed of a greater value. This might be a first conclusion, but just in some respects, since we weren't able to individuate any single variables that could somehow feature perceived value overall. So we had to distinguish among different nuances of value. And what is the kind of value that is actually perceived when people were faced with sustainable products? The perception of the presence of innovative elements or some forms of diversifications has led our participants to believe that some benefits should be present. So some otherwise saying, by seeing something new, they maybe thought, don't know, something has changed, this is not what I'm used to, I'm not used to seeing, there should be a motivation behind it. And indeed, the identification of advantages, if any, in the greener product was not an instantaneous process. Conversely, the exploration of more sustainable products took much longer, was more troublesome with respect to the exploration and to the answering of questions for the other products that in our research we call the baseline products. So a first reflection, a first thought on that. So our focus is that we would like people to be aware of the green advantages in order for these advantages to be perceived as valuable, but probably by seeing these results we are really not there, and there are very different interpretations so on the presence of advantages, disadvantages. So different perspectives have been clearly shown in this case, and by building also on other results, we have also somehow revealed how certain kind of sustainable advantages that take place in the use phase are more visible to people than sustainable advantages that take place in different phases of the product life cycle. Let's move on, because I will try to introduce also some further results. The least sustainable products are attributed of greater ordinary value. So somehow they have given people the sense that people were more familiar with those products. And from this point of view, they have attributed greater quality. So these products are somehow functional, have probably a good performance to price ratio, and somehow they are within people's control zone. By the way, the more sustainable products are more likely to be attributed of a price greater than the real one. So we have also collected real prices of all the objects, and there was a price overestimation especially for more sustainable products, while people were more able to understand the real price of more familiar products. And by the way, in terms of emotions and especially in terms of arousal, the more sustainable products have not given rise to significantly enhanced emotional reactions. So I don't want to say that people were indifferent to them, but this was not shown at a larger scale. The seeing of the observation of new and more sustainable products didn't trigger any particular fluctuation of people, let's say, arousal. So some further reflection. By saying this, is we can somehow figure out that when we design and we introduce and distribute greener products, sustainability is probably not a sufficient factor for making people change their choice behavior. So this has revealed somehow that the issue we have faced, at least in this experiment, was substantial, considerable. So we cannot actually neglect, as eco-designer or researchers in eco-design, the processes that lead to the understanding and choice of new products. And we are more and more talking about catastrophes. The climate change 2020 will be not remembered as a year free of catastrophes. And in any case, although probably there is an increasing awareness of people towards sustainability, towards the environment, the sentiment of doing the good doesn't lead necessarily to choose greener products. Also because no emotional event is triggered, and maybe we would like to, we should need to do more in this sense. We probably need that new and greener products deliver value in different forms, of course, including the emotional ones. So unfortunately, as I will stress later, there are many open questions, and shall we integrate different sources of value? How? And what about the green consumers? So the answers they have given us about their thoughts about some issues have not affected just marginally the results. So there were not overall marked differences in value perception if we isolate green consumers and less green consumers. The only factor that was affected was an even more innovative value attributed to sustainable products by people that are or seem to be greener. So it seems like, and actually we don't know, it is what we are asking, and this is somehow supported by other sources of literature. The attention paid and the value attributed to these new, greener, and maybe diversified products is a matter of awareness of sustainability or openness to new experiences of these people. So are these people more aware or just less conservative than the other ones? Another open question. Therefore, there are no conclusions, and while the SIG has entrusted me to have a webinar on how do users perceive the product's sustainability performance, this has turned out to be in posing the same question but without how. So the questions that we have to ask ourselves is, do users perceive the product sustainability performance? Which elements are needed in order for this positive perception to be enacted. In each case, I will try to give some implications, suggest some implications, and this study confirms that for the time being, eco-design cannot be conducted in isolation. So once again, it is actually more and more important to see the big pictures and see the complex phenomena that are taking place around us, and that in this respect, what has emerged is that sustainable design, green eco-design, from the point of view of the research, has surely some interesting bridges, at least with close fields such as design creativity, emotional design, user experience design, design cognition, and probably while we can provide them with some important expertise, we can also receive it from this field that, according to these studies, are the most close to sustainable design. Some stories have the happy ending. I am close to the end of my presentation, and actually after a couple of weeks I came back to my parents' home, and instead of finding the paper roll that has fascinated me, I found a new one. So somehow some problems has taken place. It was not found in the same supermarket. No happy ending. But I hope at least that although there was no happy ending, you found in each case this presentation interesting. You will have interesting questions to ask. In each case, I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much for a nice presentation, Yuri. We do have lots of questions to you here already, but if you have more questions in the audience, you are welcome to continue asking them in the Q&A. So the first question
and of course, I'm free also to do. I'm very happy to do it remotely if we won't have time for questions.
Sounds good. So let's start maybe with the first question. And this is from Marcos. He says, less bad is different from to be a good approach. Have you assessed if the reactions from consumer are different for less bad and good products?
I don't know if I actually get what you. Okay, so if you say somehow, what if we move with incremental steps that do not provoke any kind of turmoil from the point of view of the interaction? No, actually, we haven't analyzed if the potential extent of sustainable improvements was a trigger for value. Maybe what we will try to do is to understand if different kinds of environmental improvements give rise to different extents of sustainable value perception. So rather than the extent of the change, we would like to understand if the quality of the change. So we are changing something about transportation, about emissions, about waste, and so on. Also because it might be very, very questionable to say the change was little and the change was small. And let me add, since we wanted to hopefully find some variations from the point of view of emotions and the instinctive reactions, small changes would probably wouldn't have given rise to relevant results.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think that the next question is connected to that one, actually. It has to do with what are the critical product features or properties that have affected the specific participant's behavior. Um, maybe you could talk about that in a greater or a lesser responsible manner.
Yeah. First of all, I have to admit that we haven't been able yet to explore that kind of data. And since we have eye tracking data, so how much the people is focused on specific features of the object could be extremely interesting. As a first, I'm talking not about data and analysis. I talked about the perception that we had in our group was that clearly identifiable and understandable text was maybe something capturing attention. So text is very relevant within pictures. This is said by psychologists long before me. Might be an effective way, but I wouldn't say just write it down. Also, because in order for writing down, sometimes we also need more packaging. So there are some effects that are contradicting. But
Mhm.
surely we are, if someone is interesting, we are available to share this data and try to look together for some regularities in the effect of specific features on people's value perception and behavior. Surely. Thank you for your
Yeah, and
question.
connected to the next question, which asks whether you could talk a little bit more about the methodology behind your observations, if the experiments could be repeated in other settings with other products, and if there's a paper where they can read more about it.
Yeah, and it is quite long, so I don't want to be particularly cruel from this point of view. In any case, the answer is yes, and we would of course be very glad to see if repeating the same experiment in a different setting would give rise to the same results. The test was conducted in Italian, but all the materials are translated in English. It would be very interesting also because, of course, we involved people from living or working in a restricted in a small territory
Mhm.
in a small territory, and but in each case there were different, I mean, ethnicities of these people, mother tongues, and so on. So of course the results are not fully they cannot be fully generalized, sorry, but yeah, of course it would be interesting. Of course, in this period it is very frustrating that such kind of experiments with people are really hard to be conducted, and at this stage it is quite difficult to run them online.
Mhm. Yeah. Maybe if we take the experiments that you have done so far with all the different findings that you had, could you maybe give some recommendations about how to design greener products and maybe how to motivate people to prefer those products?
it's it's a very it's a very difficult question, and I don't want to bear responsibility for my answer. So I will take an example that I've heard the first time in Copenhagen at a conference on product service system. In a keynote speech, the speaker was saying, if you think that you will motivate a mother of a newborn to buy used um, used clothes for the baby because this is more sustainable, you will fail. If you tell those mothers that used garments are better because other mothers have used them and they have surely washed them with attention, with antibacterial and so on. This would be a win-win situation. So the recommendation I would give, provide different sources of value in order for that product to be chosen. If it is not chosen for the sustainable value, doesn't really change. At the end of the day, what we are interested is that people choose the more sustainable product. And then we will try to motivate them again in order to start a virtual cycle. But in any case, differentiation of sources of value, especially when we propose something radically new. Also because we have really to attract a variety of consumers that have different sensitivity, different interests, and different values.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Yuri. It's really a really in-depth research with lots of insights. And people really want to know where to read more about it, and they want to check whether these slides could be shared afterwards.
Yeah, if you share the slides in the slide where there is the, let's say, today's banner, in the same slide there is also the link to the paper. Of course, I didn't mention during the presentation, I really appreciate, and I have to share the credits with people who have worked with me in this kind of research and subsequent one. One of these people is Daniela Pigosso, but it seems that it is we had agreed it beforehand, but sincere thanks to all of them.
Yeah, so I will share the link with you in the video afterwards.
Yeah.
But you are always welcome to also visit the Design Society website, where you can watch this presentation again and get access to the paper and to the presentation.
And people can become a member and collaborate with the special interest groups. Among them, there is a very good and welcoming and open one whose name is a sustainable design.
Of course, yeah, everybody's very welcome to join. So I've just posted the link to the paper in the Q&A. And I just want to say thank you very much for today, Yuri. It was really nice to have you on board and to hear more about your exciting research on eco-design, also together with Lorenzo Maccioni.